Origins of the FARC, Between Violence and Revolution. Welcome to Echoes of History. In this series, we explore the armed movements that shaped Latin American history in the 20th century. Today, we delve into the origins of the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, better known as the FARC. How did this group emerge? What were its ideological foundations? And how did it become the most powerful insurgency in Colombia? To answer these questions, we must go back to a time of deep political unrest in the country, the 1950s. Imagine a Colombia where entire towns were ravaged by political violence. Between 1948 and 1958, the country endured one of its bloodiest periods, la violencia. Liberals and conservatives fought a ruthless battle for power. More than 200,000 people died in massacres, ambushes, and indiscriminate attacks. But the most affected were the peasants who, caught in the middle of the war, began forming self-defense groups. At first, these groups were not guerrillas, nor did they seek to overthrow the government. They simply wanted to protect their land and families from armed militias and state repression. Meanwhile, the Cold War intensified global tensions. The United States, fearing the spread of communism in Latin America, funded governments to suppress any leftist movements. In Colombia, this led to increased militarization of the countryside and the persecution of communist and peasant leaders. The birth of the FARC. One of these resistance groups was led by Pedro Antonio Marin, better known as Manuel Marulanda Vélez, or simply Tiro Fijo. Born into a peasant family, Marulanda had been a liberal guerrilla during La Violencia, but over time, he leaned towards communism. He joined the Colombian Communist Party and led rural communities seeking to defend themselves from the army and landowners. In 1964, the Colombian government, with U.S. support, launched Operation Marquetalia. Its goal was to eradicate communist enclaves in the countryside, but the operation had the opposite effect. Instead of eliminating the rebels, it forced them to unite. Thus, with just 48 fighters, Marulanda and other leaders proclaimed the creation of the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, People's Army, the FARC-EP. FX, marching boots, real speech from Marulanda. Their primary demand, land reform that favored peasants and limited the power of large landowners. But their struggle soon became something much larger: ideology and strategy. The rise of the FARC. The FARC adopted a Marxist-Leninist ideology, convinced that armed revolution was the only way to change Colombia's political and economic structure. During the 1970s and 80s, the group strengthened by controlling vast rural areas, collecting revolutionary taxes from farmers and businesses, engaging in kidnappings and extortion to finance operations, forming alliances with other leftist movements. The FARC became the most powerful guerrilla group in Colombia, with thousands of combatants and a presence that challenged the state. But were they truly the defenders of the people, or had they become another oppressive force? The FARC emerged as a response to violence and inequality, but its evolution turned it into a central player in a war that would last for decades. In the next episodes, we will analyze its rise, its ties to drug trafficking, and the peace efforts that transformed Colombia. If you're interested in the history of armed movements in Latin America, subscribe and join us on this journey through history. Until next time,